My name is Jacob Gorski, and I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in to the Gayest Generation, where we hear LGBTQ elders speak for themselves. Every episode, we sit down with a different member of the LGBTQ community who laid the foundation for the freedoms we have today. Their stories make noise where there is silence, and that silence has lived for far too long. It's about time we let their voices fill the room. In this episode, we speak with Randy Hasso. He shares his experiences in Tunisia as a member of the Peace Corps, growing up on a pickle farm, and what it was like to care for AIDS patients in small-town America during a time where even the president wouldn't say the word AIDS publicly. Due to adult language and situations, viewer discretion is advised. This is the Gayest Generation.
My name is Randy Hasso. I'm 61 years old. I'm from Saginaw, Michigan, originally from Pinconning, Michigan. I identify as gay.
Well, we're so glad you're here. Just want to start off by saying thank you so much. How I've been starting these interviews so far is I'm interested to know when you first realized that you were gay.
I started kindergarten early. I was 4, and I remember Miss Ann was my teacher, and I remember the 6th graders were let out to their buses early, and there was one kid that I just was so attracted to at 4 years of age, and I would stand by the door and wait for him to pass by. And I even had a nickname for him, Smoothie, I called him. And this was 4 years old. Yeah. I didn't really understand that I could feel an attraction.
And when did you realize that being gay was a thing that other people felt?
Probably college.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time. I was pretty backwards.
Sure. And what led to that realization?
I think being in a college atmosphere away from my family and Pinconning and the farms and seeing life, all at once, just sort of everything thrown at me at once.
And as you see more of the world, it's only a matter of time before.
Right. I was very quiet at home and didn't really know even sexual reproduction until I was in college.
Sure.
So, I didn't. I didn't understand where the penis went. I thought it went inside the bra, the breast. That's how backwards I was.
Sure. So, let alone gay sex, let alone being gay. When you realized that you were gay, what did you do with your gayness?
Nothing in high school at all. In college, I remember there was a second year of college, one of the people running for the president of the MSU was gay, and he won. I can't remember his name now, but this was probably 77, 78. And I remember that was kind of mind-boggling for me at the time. And then there was a group outside campus of an elderly gentleman, and he had a gay support group. And I remember taking the bus to this support group several times, and that was basically my first introduction to gay people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as I understand it from our previous conversations, you went to MSU.
I went to Michigan State, yes.
For
horticulture.
Because you grew up on a farm.
Yes, in a farm area. Yep. Mm-hmm.
What's that experience like?
Well, we lived in the town of Pinconning, but we had a farm. And it was a lot of work. We were right there picking pickles, hoeing the things at 4, 5 in the morning. Yeah. We were out on the thing. We learned to come early to do the hoeing and such because it was cooler. And, it was a lot of work.
My grandmother grew up on a pickle farm as well. Before she died, she wasn't even able to smell cucumbers. Okay. It would send her in a fit.
Yeah.
Because I think that speaks to the level of work that one has to do when they grow up on a farm.
Right. The only good thing was my dad always had a field that was designated just for us, and all the money that was made on that field went to us. And we learned right away to make sure we picked those cucumbers, pickles at number 1s and number 2 size because they were worth a lot more money. And that paid for my college education because we certainly didn't have the money for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was able to pay for my college. It's a lot cheaper than it is today, but through that working on the farm.
Did many of your peers also attend college?
I would say there were quite a few. Yeah. A lot of them. There were 2 or 3 that went to Michigan State, but I didn't know them very well at the same time. Yeah.
And at Michigan State is where you learned about the Peace Corps.
Yes.
What is the Peace Corps exactly? I don't mean
Well,
to be
it was
ignorant.
founded in, I think, 63 by John F. Kennedy. And I think he founded it here at U of M.
Right on the steps of the
Yeah, right at U of M. And I just remember hearing about it, and I wanted to express myself, and I wasn't ready to find a job immediately when I graduated. And I remember going and saying, where do they need me? And they said the hardest place to fill are the Arab countries. They're the hardest. They're the least. People stay the least. They'll quit early quite often, and they need that. So I said, fine. So they put me in Tunisia, between Libya and Algeria, and we lived in the Sahara Desert.
Wow.
It was an experience. There was no running water. I lived in a man-made cave, didn't have a roof, slept on the floor. It was interesting for almost 3 years.
Did you enjoy that solitariness?
I was used to it because I was quite alone anyways. So I was used to being alone. There were times, Christmas time, they didn't celebrate that. It was a little harder. There were, I think, 7 other Peace Corps volunteers in Tunisia. They weren't anywhere near me. But I remember at Christmas a couple times we got together at a hotel in Tunis. And, it was a little less lonely then.
And what does an average day look like as a Peace Corps member in Tunisia? What were your duties?
I was there for agriculture to help them increase their crop yields. I started bees for fertilization, but that did not go over well because they had so much of our chemicals that we had dumped there when America was no longer able to sell them here, DDT and such. So we sold them overseas. Didn't say much about USA. So the bees kept dying because they were using these chemicals. I also started rabbits. I got some rabbits from America, and we bred them with them because the rabbits were quite scrawny. And a lot of handicapped children there, and they had they needed subsistent farming. The people needed hands to work. Sure. So these young kids were not really taught anything, not even toilet trained. Some of them, the only thing wrong with them was they were like albino. But because they were different, they were treated differently, so they grew up differently. So I started a garden with those children, and we had rabbits. I did have to lock that up, though, because there were several kids that were quite violent, and lock the hose and such that we were given. But we had a garden and rabbits and chickens. And then they gave me the second year a mini bike, a little mini bike. So I was able to travel all through the desert, Sahara Desert, to the other towns. And so I was able to meet other farmers, not just in this small area I was. You didn't want to break down, though. I tell you, you would have been having a hard time because there was very little. I do have a scorpion bite here. I almost died.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that was...
I'm seeing like a scar under your nose.
It bit me when I was about 3 a.m. on the floor, and I was in town, the small town, and my whole face swelled up. I couldn't breathe. There was no buses, no cars. One bus went through the town once a day, so I had to put a blanket over my face. I couldn't close my mouth anymore. My lips were like this wide, and I was just drooling. And I got on the bus. And was taken to Tunis. And I remember there was a nurse there, I think her name was Cynthia, and she just started bawling. when I got off the bus. And I was 3 days, they just injected me with all kinds of medicines. They called my parents and said, we don't know if he's going to make it at that time. And so that was an experience, and I still have the scar. I used to wear a mustache all the time to kind of cover it, but, as I get older, it's not so important.
Show your near-death scorpion sting scar off.
Yeah. So that was interesting, too. But I just went to the farmers. And there was sheik in the town, the Amda. He had 2 wives, and I got along with everyone. And towards the end, they accepted me so well that I was able to go into homes with the husbands and the men not there, with just the women, which is not, you don't do. The women were still covered up in the town with hijabs and such, and but I was very comfortable. Lonely, the water you carried 2 miles to get water. There was a public bathhouse, not like you're used to with a gay public bath, but there was a bathhouse you'd go to, and you would take your bath, and there was a guy in there who would stand on you and clean you off with his feet. Very interesting. But I enjoyed that, but it was not really feasible to go that often. But
is that loneliness that you might have felt in Tunisia similar to the loneliness you felt growing up on the farm?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, I knew a lot of people there, and they always wanted to be by me, and there was a lot of guys there, and they always felt me out to see if I was interested in having sex with them, because the women were kept secluded until marriage, in these smaller towns. Bigger cities, Tunis, Bazaar, such, you didn't see that. But in these small towns in the desert, Sahara Desert, they were much more backwards in their cultural beliefs. They were still slicing the children's foreheads to bleed them, the babies, when they were sick. And the Tunis and the stuff were coming to these towns and saying, hey, do not do this. This is bad. This is going to make your child even worse. But it's hard to break those kinds of beliefs.
You had mentioned how they treated children that were perceived as different.
Yes, very much so. They locked them in rooms. Basically, they were not taken care of. No bathroom training, because they couldn't pull their weight. And it was very sad. And that's why I started getting them. And they were so happy to send these kids to me. And some of them were very hydrocephalic. Some of them were very violent, children, and it was kind of hard. But they loved me, and it was they loved me because somebody gave them attention.
Yes,
and was doing stuff with them. Yeah,
and I think, beyond that, you weren't different in the same way as those children, but being gay, you were different.
Yes, absolutely.
Where were you at, kind of, with your understanding of who you are as a gay person while you're in this place,
right?
Which perhaps is not the most gay friendly.
I met a lot of men who would have been very happy to have sex with me. They were not gay.
They're not homosexual. No, explain that.
They were not homosexual. They were just a way for them to basically masturbate.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a mutual way and it was accepted. You didn't really talk about it too much, but they, and I would encounter those gentlemen quite often. And once they got to know me and stuff, they realized that I wasn't there for that. I never, ever participated in anything like that, because that town, everyone would have known immediately. My credibility would have been ruined. You couldn't do it. I mean, maybe in a bigger city I could have tried to drive, but just didn't interest me. I was there for a different reason, and wasn't ready for that myself, I guess.
Were the men who sought that out persecuted within the community?
No.
Or was that culturally?
It was culturally accepted for the not now that if you were a homosexual, which I did meet quite a few eventually, you could tell, when somebody was they weren't accepted. Most of them went to Italy, to France. They moved, they left. There were no jobs really available in the towns where I was. Digash, Tozer. There weren't a lot of jobs for these guys, and so they traveled to across the Mediterranean Sea to these other countries and had jobs. A lot of them were prostitute jobs. You would all of a sudden find, where did Uthman go? Where did he go? Say, oh, he went to France. And 5 months later he'd come back and he'd have all kinds of new clothes and it was just, and it was accepted. It was kind of not, they didn't really like it, but it wasn't like he wasn't treated badly for doing that.
Why do you think it was accepted to the extent that it was?
I think because they realized these guys didn't have a lot going for them. They didn't really have an available job that was going to let them get married and have children, and it was accepted. I think if I had gone there and been gay and out and doing such, I don't think that would have went over well. I think.
And the distinction is, having gay sex is not gay, but being in a romantic relationship with a man that might involve gay sex, that's the thing that they don't want.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And it was a difference. And you could tell. I mean, in my town, the guys, they loved me being around. And, the little coffee house places, they weren't like coffee houses here. They were just brick and mortar type little things.
Sure.
And they played a lot of cards. They didn't have a lot to do. And so that's what they did. A lot of the guys my age and older had big, terrible scars on their foreheads and stuff because as a child they had been bled. So there was a lot of scarring on their foreheads. It was just it was a different type of beliefs, and it was hard for them to switch over, I believe.
Is there, and I don't mean to jump to conclusions, but is there any similarity between growing up in Pinconning, which is a rural, sort of isolated farm town? Is there any similarities between that and where you were in Tunisia?
Well, Pinconning, did not have a very great high school experience. A lot of taunting, bullying, but it was accepted, and there really wasn't anything you could do about it. I was constantly being grabbed by guys and put underneath their shirts and like suck my tits and this sort of crap. Because they could identify me as being gay, even though I didn't speak about it, didn't really act upon it at all. They, I think they could see I was different, And
I think a lot or a good amount of homophobic bullying that takes place is inherently an expression of their gayness.
Right.
It was like they weren't just making fun of you for being gay; they were forcing you into sexual situations with their straight bodies.
Yeah, and so in Tunisia, it was a little different. It wasn't. I didn't encounter really bullying, other than being an American. I remember President Reagan was shot while I was there, and there was dancing in the street, and they were shooting guns off, and then the Pope was shot while I was over there, and same thing. More so with Reagan, though. They were happy. They were very happy about it.
And speaking of Reagan, when you come back to America, you start working with people suffering from HIV/AIDS.
Right. In
an era where Ronald Reagan won't even say the word AIDS.
Right.
What was that like?
Well,
how'd you get started in that?
Well, I at first, when I came back, I started working at a grocery store and purchased it and bought it out and ended up owning it myself. And there was Dignity, which is a gay Catholic organization. And that's what I basically started at. And I went to, I would try to go for like some of the meetings. And they were lifesavers for me in a way because I knew no one. That's where I met my friend Rick, several other people, and they become friends, lifelong friends. So after that, and I was working, the AIDS epidemic reared its head, and they had so much homophobic, so much uneasiness. People didn't understand. They were afraid. And these gentlemen were coming back from San Francisco, different places, full-blown AIDS, Sarkozy, with that one growth.
The lesions.
The lesions. And they had no one. And, they were scared and sad because they had lived a life of freedom. And all of a sudden, they didn't have that anymore. And several that I became buddies. It was called Buddy System. And you were assigned them, and you visited them as often as you could, tried to take them out. A lot of them were so sick that they couldn't. But I would take them to McDonald's, one gentleman, a lot, because he liked to go there just to be out. And you would visit them and just give them support. And you also met their families. Their mothers and fathers who were having a terrible time dealing with this. And you became friends with them because they were so appreciative, at least the ones that I encountered, so appreciative of somebody coming and taking an interest in trying to make this person's life a little easier. Because they had a term limit on their life. They were definitely not going to live very long because at that time there was no cure, there was no medicines that could prolong you. So it was hard. It was hard. And then we started making quilt panels. They had lists of all these gentlemen who had died, and they wanted us to make quilts for them. So I made several quilts, maybe 4 or 5, and I'm not artistic. And I went to Washington, D.C. and volunteered at the quilt 3 times in Washington, and was like a support person one time. One time I ran booths selling merchandise, and that was fun. It felt satisfying, gratifying, just to feel this camaraderie and everybody's there pulling for one another.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the AIDS Quilt Project?
Well, it started in the early 80s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it took place outside of San Francisco. And the one time I visited San Francisco, I found the building, and it was this little hole in the wall, and it had all these quilts stacked up in sections and organized, the labeling, this is from here, this is from here. And it was really interesting to see, and this was during the time of like Harvey Milk and Moscone and the different people who had been killed. And I visited that spot and saw where he had been killed and on the steps. And it was very interesting. And since then, I believe they now have most of the quilts headquartered in, I think, Atlanta, I believe. It's become such a big thing. But you don't hear about it as much now. You don't hear people making them. At the time, I bought all kinds of materials and quilt pieces and was making them. And for people I didn't even know, but basically the family had wanted a quilt made. So, we were making them, yeah.
Do you have a particular panel that you remember being the most proud of or that you most enjoyed making?
Yes, there was one, a gentleman that everybody knew. I don't know, can I say his name?
Sure.
Hollywood was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in Saginaw knew him. And I had never met the gentleman. I was still kind of working and not doing much else. Mm-hmm. And they wanted a quilt panel made for him. So I made the quilt, and I used the rainbow colors and the people had given me some information on him, and I was putting that into it, and it's within the quilt. So now then they show the quilt. If it comes to like Bay City or someplace, usually they try to send the panels from that area. So several times I've seen these quilts that I made in pink Michigan settings. Kind of interesting.
And when you're taking care of these men who are suffering from HIV/AIDS, just so listeners understand what it's like to suffer from that, what are kind of the symptoms of that? Explain that kind of side of it.
I don't know really the medical so much, but
sure.
But they just was losing weight, and they had the growths on them, especially people who had done a lot of anal sex seemed to have more problems at that time. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, so I was basically coming into this as a support, not really in a medical fashion, not really telling them ways of feeling better or anything. It was more of a spiritual a way of doing it with them. Yeah. And they seemed to really enjoy having somebody. Several of them that I met were from San Francisco, and they knew no one left, really, because they'd been gone for 20, 30 years,
They grew up in Michigan.
Yeah, and then they had left. And, their families were still here, and here they came home to die.
Did everybody, came home to die? It's kind of hit me.
Yeah.
Were there any people whose families...
Oh, absolutely. There were quite a few that wouldn't even allow a gay friend to go to the funeral. There were quite a few of that where, the obituary wouldn't mention anything about anything but family members, and that was it. And you were not welcome to go to the funerals at all. I remember several times I wasn't able to go to a funeral that I really would have liked to have gone, but I didn't want to cause a problem, and I thought, well, this is their child, I can do without. Wow.
Why do you think that you volunteered to do this kind of work?
Well, same as volunteering in the Peace Corps, I think I just like feeling needed, like helping people. I think it's just a part of my nature, I guess, growing up, I was...
And I think a lot of people have that knee-jerk reaction where you see somebody needs help, so you give it to them. Mm-hmm. I find that that's more prevalent in the LGBTQ community, is that people are, oh, you need something? Here.
Right.
To an extent, of course.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as you are helping these men out, what would they say?
Well, they were very depressed, very sad, a lot of them. I didn't know them real well, so I was getting to know them, and they were sick. Some of them, you'd meet them 4 or 5 times and they were gone. Mm-hmm. You didn't get a chance to really do a friendly thing, go to a movie. It was more, you were there to give them comfort, to have somebody there to talk to, but you weren't really able to be a friend like you would go, let's go to a baseball game, let's do this. It just didn't happen. So you didn't get to know them in that way, like you would somebody if you went just out to dinner or something.
And you were there to say, I see you.
Yes.
I hear you.
Yes, that was exactly it. And for the families, a lot of the families almost got more out of somebody there than the person with the AIDS, actually. Several of them, the parents, the mothers, I was in contact with them until they passed away. I knew them really well, Christmas cards and go to their homes and such. I actually got to know them better than I did the child because they lived on.
Were any families adversarial towards you, or what's the word I'm really looking for?
Yeah.
Antagonistic towards you?
Well, there were certainly families who would not have welcomed a buddy. They were kind of, the people who we were assigned had asked for help. Mm-hmm. They had asked for this. And so they were receptive to it. There were a lot of people who were basically ghosts. They were not given any support. And that was a tragedy, but the families chose that,
When did you sense that, was there a particular moment where you started to feel like the tide had changed, that people began to understand AIDS and to be more caring? Did that moment happen? And if so, what did it look like?
Boy, it was, I would say, not for the first 10 years at least, and not at all. It was, whispers and this and that. You didn't feel the support from America or from the world, basically. But I do think that the people, as they became more educated with the disease and understood it a little more, I think there was more acceptance. And now it's you can live with it. I know a lot of people who are living with AIDS, and they're working and they're doing great. They have to watch their medical whatever they're taking and be religious about that. Back in the day, they gave up. I knew a lot of friends who just gave up. They didn't take care of themselves, and they died, where they might have lived longer, but they were done. Maxed out their credit cards because they knew they weren't going to be able to use them anymore, and they'd be dead. That was a real problem. I know, like in San Francisco and such, there was a lot of problems with that they were using these credit.
Yeah.
Because they had a time limit to their life, and yeah.
Is there something about the AIDS epidemic as it was in the 80s that you would like younger generations, people my age and younger, to understand about that time?
Oh, I don't know. It was a very sorrowful time, very scary time. You were kind of looking over your shoulders. There wasn't the support. Reagan didn't mention the name, wouldn't even say the words. So you certainly didn't get it from the government. But there were a lot of good people, doctors and such, who took it upon themselves to really help. But yeah, it was a scary time. You didn't know from day to day what was going to happen. I remember I had testicular cancer, and the doctor tested me for AIDS 3 times, saying, well, because my testicle was very swollen, and he kept testing me and saying, well, how, I think it's AIDS. And I said, sir, can't be AIDS unless I'm catching it from a toilet seat.
Sure.
And after the 3rd time, I actually had to go to my medical Blue Cross and ask for a different doctor.
Wow.
And I did. And right away, oh my gosh, yeah, you have cancer. And, I dilly-dallied for 4 months with this doctor because he just wouldn't go past the fact that I was homosexual.
Yeah.
And my testicles were swollen. I have AIDS.
Yeah.
And 3 times he tested me before I said, this isn't possible. In my case, it's not possible that I have it. But, after the 3rd time, I said, if there's something wrong here, it's the size of an orange. I said, I need to get this taken care of.
Yeah.
And they got me a different doctor. And immediately, you'll need it removed, So that was a rough thing. And this was a doctor who, didn't have an understanding, at all.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
At the time that you are caring for these other people, that's when you had purchased your business, right?
Yes. Well, yes. I had a little bit before that. Yeah. Yep. Yes. I had my business, the depot, and started out my brother and I together, and then he wanted out, so I bought him out. Took loans from the banks, and my dad loaned me some money, and I ran it for 25 years.
What was it like being a gay business owner in small town Michigan?
Well, it was in Saginaw.
Can we call Saginaw a small town?
Well, it's not large, and it's certainly
not a big town.
No. And it was I knew what I was doing. I was very comfortable with what I was doing, and I felt, I felt like I could run that business and have no problems, and I did. I mean, it was very successful. I wish in a way I still had it because, but it was just very stressful. You're doing 70, 80 hours a week. I was ballooned up to 400 pounds. I was there till 1, 2 in the morning, eating my lunch, dinner, everything there. And, had no social life. That was my own fault. That wasn't, basically being gay. That was just me. And finally, it just got the best of me. I got robbed by 4 gentlemen, pistol whipped, shotguns to my head and such. And I thought, maybe there's more to this than that. And they were closing Tittabawassee Road a lot to expand it. And it was hurting my business 3 years in a row. And I was getting frustrated by that. The road commission was not being very helpful. Well, just close your business, just close it, and the police were ticketing people if they try to get to the store. And that was very stressful. And then I had my mother and father had a house fire. My dad died in the house fire. And I said, so I put it for sale. It took a year and a half to sell. And then I went and started working for others. And it's a big change.
And I think the nature of, you had owned a liquor store, right?
It was a liquor, party store, grocery store, a little bit of everything, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What we in Michigan call a party store.
Yes.
I just found out that party store is not like a...
universal.
Yeah. And you had told me before that when other businesses started popping up.
Yeah. When I first was there were no Myers down the road. There were no 7-Elevens. It was just me, and it was 2-lane road going to Freeland. And gradually Myers showed up, and then they got liquor, and then the 7-Elevens, and somehow they got beer and wine, even though when you hit a gas station, you weren't really supposed to at that time. But, I guess money talks. I don't know, but it just... and so there was more competition, but it didn't hurt me, really. We were still very busy right up to the day I sold it, making a good living.
And because you were gay, did you garner a gay clientele?
In the sense that, like when they were having parties, I would get them to come in to buy the kegs, the beer sometimes, things like that. Yes, I would get a gay clientele somewhat for that. But other than that, not really. It was more the people living around there, the trailer park. I guess you'd call it mobile home park. You're not supposed to say trailer park.
Oh,
yeah,
hey.
It's mobile home park.
I'm fine with trailer park.
Yeah,
but I mean,
they don't really. It's not really looked upon well, and
Sure.
I certainly wouldn't have said it when I was running this business.
Yeah. Well,
But-
if you grow up in a trailer, it's a trailer.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. And so then you had closed your business.
Yes.
And then what does...
I was helping my mother because she had her toes amputated, then part of her feet. And
after
she had
the house fire.
Yes, and wound clinics. And so I was helping her. She was in Pinconning, so I was traveling back and forth and helping. And took like a couple of years off. And then I started working at Sears. And I lost my job, in November when the store closed.
And the Sears in Ann Arbor closed too.
Yeah, there's none in Michigan now. None. The last one was in Livonia, and I think it's in liquidation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, yeah. No more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm looking for a job.
You hear that, listeners? And to circle back to your time in Tunisia, you had told me, and this is mirroring what happened when you were robbed.
Mm-hmm.
You had told me that you were stabbed in Morocco?
Yes, in Morocco. There was a 2-week break, and, I certainly wasn't going to be able to travel back to America. And I went to Morocco on my own, traveling around in the buses, no hotels scheduled or anything, just sort of went to the towns. And I was young, and it was fun. A lot of drugs in Morocco. A little more acceptable than other places. There were a lot of Peace Corps volunteers who, once they got to Tunisia, they wanted to transfer to Morocco because of that.
They could party.
Yeah. Some of them were successful too, I should say.
Successful in the partying?
And getting the transferred over. But so I was there, and I remember I was taking a photo of one of their mosques type things, and a gentleman jumped me and threw me to the ground, and had a big, huge knife, and I had a sweater on, and slit the sweater, all the buttons off, and was a very superficial wound because I think the sweater kind of protected
Yeah.
me. And then he just kept coming at me with the knife, and I'm rolling away. And he got my St. Christopher medal, which I had had from when I had my confirmation. And he got all the money that was in my pockets and such. Luckily, I had a money belt, and my passport was in my shoe. And then I went to the police station, and they didn't really take me too seriously, but they had me look through books. But the council, the United States, they kind of recommended that I not really identify the person if I even found them. Because I would be stuck there for a while. I wouldn't probably be able to go back to Tunisia. I'd probably be... my passport would probably be rescinded for a while or what. I mean, I never really know exactly what the mentality was. But, yeah. So after that, I still had like 5 more days. And I remember I would travel during the day, but once 5 o'clock came, I was in my hotel room.
Yeah.
So the last 5 days, I didn't really enjoy Casablanca and a couple of the cities because I was a little more frightened. Yeah.
I think the bravery of, first of all, I'll just go to the Sahara Desert and help people. That's immense. The bravery of being jumped and then being like, oh, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. What's something what do you miss most about Tunisia?
I think the people that I met, the ones who, in the town that I got to know, the bigger cities, you had to be careful. I was spit at, and it was a little more anger.
You've lived an incredible life.
No, it doesn't feel like it, no.
Well, no, I remember saying this to you on the phone. I can sit here and be like, and tell you that, but you're the one who lived it.
Yeah.
So, how I've been going about wrapping up these interviews is I have kind of a questionnaire of like
Okay.
fast fire questions. What would you bring to a potluck dinner?
Probably cowboy beans.
Ooh, so tell me about that.
It's bacon, hamburg, ketchup, tomato sauce, mustard, 6 or 7 different types of beans.
Dried beans, right?
You can do it that way, or if you're in a hurry, you can open up
Cans.
cannelloni and butter beans and all the rest. And I make it up quite often.
Hey. What part of aging has brought you the most joy?
Boy, I guess that's kind of a hard one actually for me. I guess my family. The ones who are left, I've lost a sister and a brother and my mother and dad. And so I think maybe family's a little more important now,
Absolutely.
even though they're not real supportive of the lifestyle. They're very Catholic.
They're not supportive of you being gay, but they're supportive of you.
Of me. They're supportive of me. They do feel that hell is in my future. Several of them do. But they are supportive of me. Yeah.
How do you accept that balance?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because you're like, well, how can you like me and love me and such, and then feel that I've betrayed the Catholic Church and, there's no other way, Yeah.
Especially when the Catholic Church has betrayed so many of us.
Yeah.
What part of aging has bothered you the most?
Well, I haven't been the best of health sometimes. I have terrible arthritis. I've had to have 2 knee replacements. I have lost 200 pounds, so I'm...
Oh my gosh, let's celebrate that.
Yeah, so I'm down to 200 where I was at 400. So
That's incredible.
yeah, so that, that helps a lot. But I think that aging, you want to have your health.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to 20-year-old you?
Pick your college choices better. Maybe get a little more instruction as to what is out there for you. Because, I kind of just blindly, on a farm, go into agriculture.
Yeah.
My sister's mother was a nurse. They're all nurses. I think I'd make a little different choices in that respect. Yeah. Maybe not stay in Saginaw.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go to a little more culturally diverse area.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, like Chicago or?
I love New York City. Love it. I go there. I haven't been there recently, but I love going there. I've been there probably 25 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you a Broadway?
Yes, I was. It's getting so priced out of my range now. But when I first started going, I could go to 4 or 5 plays, 3 in a day sometimes I went to. That's kind of not in my wallet anymore.
Well, they're charging $150 to a balcony seat to Les Mis in Lansing.
I have decided that if I am going to go to these things, I want good seats.
Yes.
Because I have gone to places. I remember I saw Cabaret on Broadway. It was at the old Studio 54.
The late 90s with Natasha Richardson.
Yes, and I saw her in concert. But the seats were so cramped, and I was 400 pounds.
Sure.
And I remember I had to sit sideways in the seat at the time, and I was so bruised when I left it. Yeah. So that. You definitely want to pick your seats,
What's your favorite fast food?
I think cereal maybe in the morning.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
You get to have dinner with 3 people alive or dead. Who are they?
My sister Pam, who passed away early, 40-some years of age. I'd love to be able to spend the time with her. Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was my lifesaver in high school. And, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and such. Just, they talked to me back in that day because I didn't have a lot of other outlets, and that he meant a lot to me at the time. He's become kind of a little bit crabby old man, a little bit, I think, but I still like him. Read his autobiography and such.
Yeah, that came out recently.
Yes, Me. Yeah. I think it was called Me. And who else? I guess maybe like one of the Depeche Mode, somebody from Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
For
a minute, I thought you were going to say Ronald Reagan.
No.
We'll skip that dinner.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln would be interesting. Ooh. Wouldn't that be interesting, too? To see his... Tell him not to go to that.
Go to a different play.
Yeah.
Maybe just go to a nice dinner.
Yeah.
What's the best age?
I would say, for me, maybe 35, maybe.
What makes you happy?
Reading.
What was your first celebrity crush?
Probably maybe David Cassidy.
Oh, I think that's my mom's too.
Yeah, maybe.
What's your best Halloween costume?
Probably one of the Wizard of Oz characters. I think I was the Tin Man a couple times. Yeah, I have a lot of Wizard of Oz stuff in my home.
Okay, not to go off too far off topic, why do gay people love the Wizard of Oz?
I don't even know why. I started, after I got back from the Peace Corps, I just started collecting it a little bit and then collecting a little more and collecting a little more. I have autographs. I have Judy Garland's autograph. I have all the Tin Men's autograph, the Scarecrows. I have Margaret Hamilton's. I have all those, yeah.
What'd you think of the Judy movie?
Sad. I knew it would be. But she was so good in it.
Yeah. Well, I thought they were respectful to her.
Yes, they were. They were. Yeah. And Renee was very diligent about that, I think. She made sure that everything was apropos. Yeah.
And they didn't go easy on her either.
No, they didn't. Well, she had a rough last few years.
Yeah.
What'd she do? Die the day before Stonewall? Yeah.
Her funeral was the day of Stonewall.
Yeah.
Betty Davis or Joan Crawford?
I would say Joan.
Have you ever used a dating site or app?
No.
Who was your gay icon growing up?
You mean someone who I knew was gay?
Like for me, and for my generation, like Beyonce, Cher.
Oh, I see. Madonna, probably. And I was a little older then, but I would say Madonna, yeah.
What stereotypes about LGBTQ folks bother you the most?
I think some of the have to be late for a party. You can't come on time. I know several people who truly believe that.
I might be in that camp.
Yeah. Oh no, it's supposed to be at 7. Well, I'll get there at 8 o'clock, and I'm like,
Well, also, if you grew up from farm people,
yeah.
I don't know if you find this, but you show up everywhere 20 minutes early.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I am everywhere 20 minutes early.
When
I'm
I-
just sitting there like,
Even
what am I
at
doing?
even at work, I was always 20, 30
Yeah.
minutes early. Oh, every day, every day. Yeah,
And I think that has to do with that.
yeah.
What do you feel about younger people using the word queer?
I'm not comfortable with it. I believe I'm not. I think because I didn't really have it back then. It was used in such a bad manner. In high school, queer pansy constantly was thrown at me. So it was so derogatory that it's hard for me now to look at it as something positive.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give younger members of the LGBTQ community?
Be proud. I think be proud and happy that you're growing up in this area, this time period. I think because there's a lot more benefit. You would never have this going on back then. You would never have the comfort. I see even in Saginaw, I see couples walking in the malls and such. You would never have seen that, 30 years ago. Never.
We definitely, my generation has so much to be grateful for
Yeah.
because of of your generation.
Yeah.
And that's the idea behind this. What's the biggest difference between younger and older LGBTQ folks?
Maybe their idea of having fun, of enjoyment.
What's the difference?
Well, I think the older people, they were so careful to be, if you went to a gay bar, if you went to this, it wasn't out. You weren't, so you were kind of quiet about it a little bit. Not that disco didn't bring you out and such, but but I think the generation today is much more open, much more carefree in their way of living.
And I think I know the answer to this question. But A Star is Born, Judy Garland, Barbara Streisand, Lady Gaga.
Definitely Judy Garland. Yeah. And then there's another one. You missed one. The one from
The 30s.
Janet Gaynor, I think. Yeah.
And was that one a musical?
No, I don't believe so. No.
I need to watch that.
Yeah. It was interesting. And in each one, there's a little different way the gentleman dies.
Yes. Well, growing up, my mom's favorite movie was the Barbara Streisand Star is Born.
Okay.
And then we went to go see the Lady Gaga one.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a little bit up in arms about some of
It
the...
was done wonderfully. I
It
thought,
was incredible.
Yeah. Even the suicide was tastefully done.
Yeah, handled well.
Yeah.
And wasn't disrespectful to those who suffer from depression or addiction.
Right.
If you could ask me one question, what would it be?
That's just how do you feel about your gay living now? Do you feel like you've missed out, or that you are enjoying your everyday being gay?
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
My family is completely accepting, insofar as a Midwestern family can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I perhaps was a little bit more flamboyant, or if I brought around more guys who were also flamboyant,
Right.
I'm not sure how they would react to that.
Yeah.
But I'm just so incredibly lucky to have the acceptance in my life that I do.
Yeah.
But in terms of how I kind of fit into the gay community today, that exists today, I think there's similar issues as there are back in the day.
Right.
But most of all, what I know for sure is that the level of acceptance that I've experienced, and the reason why the idea behind this podcast is people my age have so much to be grateful for that we don't even know exactly what to be grateful for, because we don't hear the experiences from people from your generation.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what kind of grounds me.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like the luckiest gal in the world. Well, thank you so much. I have a hard time expressing how thankful I am that you are here.
Well, I enjoyed it. I was a little leery. I didn't quite know what it was going to happen.
Sure.
So.
Well, it's I called you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was like, I got your number from somebody.
Yeah.
Do you want to come tell me all your...
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. This has been a production of Ann Arbor District Library. For more podcasts, visit aadl.org/podcasts.